Hello and welcome to another colouring video. This video is actually part 2 of a colour along. If you want to go and watch part 1, I'll put a link in the top right hand of the screen now, and I'll also put a link in the video description below. Okay, so this is where we are so far. I've done the sky, the trees and the house, and next we're going to move on to the bushes. I'm using watercolor pencils, and it's the Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer pencils, and everything I'm using in the videos will be linked below in the description, along with all the pencil colours as well. Oh, and I forgot to mention, it's the Autumn Scenes colouring book by Creative Haven. So I'm starting off by just doing one bush at a time. Now this first one I'm using the olive green yellowish first of all, and that's kind of towards the bottom, and then the top of it I'm using green gold, and then the same for this one as well. So green gold towards the top, and then I just kind of fade that into the olive green yellowish towards the bottom. And now I'm adding some dark sepia down to the very bottom to make it look, you know, dark underneath the bottom of that bush. And then I changed the colours up a little bit. For this little bush here, I put the green gold to the top like the other two, and then underneath that I used the, I think it was the earth green yellowish, which is more of a brighter green. And then I just add a little bit of that into those other bushes as well. And then change the colours for the other bushes. I've started off with the green gold at the bottom, and then I'm adding some scarlet red into the top here. And then some burnt sienna. And then I change my mind and get the green gold again as the next colour under the red, and then add some of the burnt sienna a little bit further down. And then I do the burnt sienna, green gold and scarlet for the back shrub as well. And now I'm going in with the water, and I'm just using tiny little circular strokes and just blending those colours downwards and into each other. Okay, so I'm adding some more burnt sienna further down towards the bottom, just kind of adding another layer and darkening them up, and then there was a little shrub at the front there that I missed. So I'm just doing that now, and I'm basically just mixing these few colours up kind of randomly on these bushes, and I'm just trying to make the colour a little bit more intense, a little bit more intense, and I'm kind of like putting some little scribbles in there to make it look kind of like it's leaves, you know, give it a bit of texture. So I just did the same for the trees over on the left hand side, and now I'm just doing the ones to the front of the house, and I'm just randomizing those colours and trying to make the bushes all different so that they stand out from each other, but I'm always trying to make them lighter colours at the top and darker at the bottom. And I'll just speed the rest of this little bit up. You can see here on that red, it looked a little bit harsh, so I'm going in with, I think it looks like a dark green, so I think it's the olive green yellowish, or possibly the chrome oxide green. And you can see I'm just like adding some little random bits into that, and it looks really nice. It looks like it's put texture into the bushes. It gives them a bit of dimension. So now I'm moving on to the grass, and I'm doing a little bit around the tree first, and I'm putting all these just little dots of the green gold, because I want it to look like it's leaves that's fallen all over the grass. Yeah, so I just put loads of dots of green gold, and then the burnt sienna as well, and I'm making them more dense towards the tree, and then, you know, a little more spaced out further away over to where the cat is. And then the main grass colour, it's just going to be a dull grass colour, and it's the olive green yellowish is what I'm colouring the rest of the grass in. So I'm just carefully trying to colour in between those little leaves that I've just put down. I mean, this type of thing just kind of falls into the background because like the tree and the pumpkins are kind of what catches the viewer's attention, so like the grass and stuff, it just fades into the background, so it doesn't need to be like highly detailed or anything like that. And then if you don't have everything highly detailed, then the best things stand out. The bits that you want to stand out will stand out. Okay, so I'm just colouring the rest of the grass in, just really loosely, you know, I'm not trying to get it smooth or anything like that, because I mean grass is messy, so it doesn't matter if there's lines in there. And then on the little tufts on the top, you can see where the artist's drawn like little jagged edges. I'm just colouring those with a bit of green gold, just to, you know, get that autumny kind of, the grass is going a bit yellow look. And then I'm darkening this little bit here above where there's little grass lines drawn by the artist, just to try and make that little front bank of grass stand out a little bit more. And then all along the edges of the grass I'm darkening that as well, and I'm using the dark sepia for this, so it looks like there's a little bit of soil, you know, you can see the soil at the edges of that grass. And now I'm just adding the water to the grass, so it really brings it to life. Not that I really want it brought to life, but that green gold, when you add the water, it's almost like Derwentine Tens. The colour just like bursts out as soon as you add the water. But you can see all the little burnt sienna dots and everything there. It's like bringing those out. So I'm just dabbing the water, as you can see. I'm not like pulling the brush across the page. I'm just dabbing the water onto that, and if they mingle into each other then they do, but I'm not like helping them along because I want it to look like it's got a leaf texture, like fallen leaves. So I'm just using the very tip of that angle brush and just dabbing water onto it. And now I'm adding some of the dark sepia to the edge. Okay, now I'm just moving on to the grass on the right hand side, and I'm using the green gold and the olive green yellowish again. So I'm just doing exactly the same as I did on the left hand side, but I'm not adding those little leaves because they were just for kind of around the base of the tree. Now all these little tufts of grass, like individual grass blades that have been drawn by the artist, I'm using more of a brighter green to make those stand out. So I'm using the earth green yellowish for those, like at the top, and then I go in with the olive green yellowish further down to make it look more shaded, like at the bottom. Next I'm colouring the fence with the dark sepia, and I'm making the edge pieces of these fence posts lighter than the fence post to make it look like the light's catching the edges. Now for this little stalk with leaves on, I'm using burnt sienna kind of to the bottom and the left hand side of the leaves, and then I'm using the green gold on the rest of the leaves and basically just activating it with water, and then that's all I did for that. I just left it like that. Okay, now onto the Halloween sign. First of all, coloured it in with dark sepia, just all over, but the actual post that it's stuck on, I did the dark sepia over to the left hand side and a lot lighter over to the right hand side. Yeah, then I activated that with water. Wasn't quite sure of the colour, so I then added some burnt sienna into it, and I think that kind of improved the colour of that a little bit. And then I added even more of the dark sepia as well, just to give it some texture and shading. Now I'm going back in with the dark sepia just to make it even more dark around those letters. Now for the Happy Halloween wording, I first went over it with green gold. I wasn't happy with that colour, so then I went over it with orange glaze. I wasn't actually happy with that colour either, and I do change that a little bit later on. I just thought it looked too bright orange, so later on in the video you'll be able to see I tone that down a little bit. Okay, so this is what it looks like so far at this stage. So we've just got the pathway and the pumpkins and the cat and the birds to do. But as you can see, that sign, that orange on that sign, it just doesn't look right. Okay, so now I'm finally moving on to the pumpkins, which is, I think, the nicest thing in the picture. This is a little bit complicated. I used quite a lot of colours for these, and I built the actual final colour up with quite a few layers as well. So I'll just go through all the layers slowly. So first of all, I'm starting with dark cadmium yellow, and I've just put it in a few highlighted areas kind of at the top where the light would catch. Now I'm going in with the orange glaze, and I'm going kind of around that and over it a little bit, but I just want to maintain a few little light yellow patches. So I'm just doing it in a kind of streaky way because they are quite streaky. They've got them long, thin, lots of ridges in them, haven't they? So it'll have all sorts of streaky shadows in there. Okay, so now I've got those highlights kind of mapped out, and now I'm using the orange glaze more firmly, and I'm going darker in the crevices and towards the bottom as well, but not like solid all over, just kind of, you know, that streaky kind of, I mean, it might look quite a bit bright at the moment, but it'll get toned down with further layers of different colours over the top. So now I'm just going in with the water, and I'm just trying to be careful to maintain some of those yellow highlights and not to completely cover them with the orange. If you're following along and you like the look of the nice bright orange pumpkins, you could probably leave it after this stage. You could just leave it like that. But if you want more shadowing and a more of a semi-realistic look, then you know, you can follow along with the rest of the layers of the other colours. Okay, so now I'm just adding a few streaks of the scarlet red. Just here and there, and mainly like in the crevices. Okay, so now I'm just moving on to the other pumpkins, and there's only the 4 large pumpkins at the front where I gave all the same amount of detail, and then when I got to the back ones there was just a lot less detail. I just made them a lot lighter orangey yellow towards the right hand side, and a lot darker towards the back and the underneath half proportion of the pumpkin. So while you're actually waiting for your paint to dry, it's probably a good idea to just move on to the other pumpkin, and then you can just come back to them and take turns of putting the layers on. That's easier than getting the hairdryer out and drying them and finishing one full pumpkin and then moving on to the next. Okay, for the next layer, I'm adding some yellow ochre. Now I'm even going over the highlights with this colour. I'm just trying to tone that orange down and make it look a little bit more realistic. And then next, I'll go in with the green gold, and I'm kind of going over the orange bits here and not the highlighted parts. And it's just toning that orange down because I thought it was a little bit too bright. And then the next colour I go in with is the olive green yellowish, and adding this more to the kind of bottom half and the creases and crevices. So now I'm adding the water to that. Now it doesn't look like it's a strong layer of colour, but if you compare it to the pumpkin behind, you can see it really has changed and toned that colour down a bit. But we're not finished yet. I still do need to add quite a few more layers to get the shadowing in around the base and around the back. Okay, so after that I went round and did that layer on all the other pumpkins, and now this one's dry again, and I'm just going in with the olive green yellowish for another layer, and just defining those crevices even more, and especially towards the back and kind of the bottom half of the pumpkin. So I'm kind of like adding the shading for each individual like strip on the pumpkin as well. Okay, so that's the pumpkins done. I actually thought I did more layers, but I think I just did the 4 layers. So now I'm moving on to the pathway, and first of all I'm just coating the whole thing in a light layer of light yellow ochre. And I'm just quickly getting this down. And then I realised that I hadn't done the stalks on the pumpkins, so I used the green gold for the right hand side and the olive green yellowish for the shaded side of the left. So back to the pathway, and I'm now adding a little bit of green gold into the path as well. But I let that kind of fade out as it comes towards the front, because I want the pathway just to look a little bit darker towards the back, so I'm not putting much at the front. And then I just go over the whole thing with some water. Okay, and after doing that, this is where it's seeped onto the back page, can you see? But it's actually gone on a pumpkin, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I would definitely put something in between them pages, because I used quite a lot of water there on that path, and it did seep through. Okay, so now the path's dry. I used a cold grey 6, which is quite a dark pencil, and I added a bit of a layer mainly towards the back of the path, just to give it more of a dirty kind of look. But I didn't add a lot, and it was mainly just to make the back of the path look a little bit further away as well. And then I used that same pencil to add some little shadows over to the left hand sides of the pumpkins at the back, so that as though they were leaving a cast shadow on the path. And then I also darkened the very edges of the path where the grass meets the edges of the path. Next I've got the burnt sienna, and I'm just putting a light layer on the top of all of these little stones that are in the pathway. And now I've got the angle brush and the water, and I'm just activating all that paint that I've just put down, or all that pencil I should say. And now I'm just adding some little shadows to the edges of those stones. Now I think I'm using the dark sepia for this. It's either the dark sepia or just one of the darker pencils, one of the dark greys or something, I can't remember now. It doesn't really matter. But I'm just kind of doing it to the left hand side, because we've got the light coming in from the right, so that edge would be lit up on the right. And then I'm adding little cast shadows as well to those to make them look like they're sticking up off the ground. And now I'm adding the cast shadows from the pumpkins. So it's just basically like a oval shaped blob to the left hand side. And now I'm toning down that Happy Halloween wording with the olive green yellowish. And I'm not covering the whole thing, I'm just kind of going over it a little bit, so there's some little bits of orange will maybe still stick out a little bit. But I'm just going over it roughly. And then I'm adding just a little bit of extra shadow into the stalks and the leaves on the pumpkins as well. And then a shadow to this pumpkin over to the left of this one, unfortunately covering up some of that cute little leaf texture that I put down there. And then I still wasn't really happy with this tree, so I'm just adding some more shading on top of this with the dark sepia, just trying to make it look a little bit better, because it just had this strip of the light colour and it seemed to be in a line and it looked unrealistic. Okay, so now for the little bird in the tree, I'm colouring this as though it's a little robin redbreast. So I'm using the scarlet red for its chest, and then I think I used, yeah, that's the green gold pencil for that, for the rest. And a little bit of the dark sepia just to the bottom of the wing to give it a little bit of shape. And now the other two little birds, I just did these blue. So basically I used the same, I think it was the cobalt blue that I used for the sky, and I just tried to make them a little bit lighter towards the top of the heads and the top of the wings, and a little bit darker underneath. And then for this one I added an even darker blue for the shading, because I didn't think it was dark enough. So the last thing to colour is the cat, so I'm going over with a light layer of black first of all, and then activate that with some water, and then once that's dry I go in and add some shading, which was quite, it was a bit difficult with the cat. So basically for the shading on the cat, like each part, like the tail, the head, the hind leg, and the legs, I just kind of made it darker to the left hand side and lighter to the right. Okay, so now I'm just adding like an oval shaped cast shadow underneath the cat, kind of offset towards the left hand side. And then I just add some shadows underneath the little birds as well, and then that's the picture finished. Okay, so this is the finished picture. I hope you like it. I hope you've enjoyed the videos, and I hope you've coloured along. But if you haven't, you've just watched it, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope it helps you in some way. Quite pleased with the result of this one. I maybe could have done a little bit more with the pathway, and I would have liked the cat to be darker as well, but I just didn't want it to be a solid black blob, so it's quite difficult. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Please give me a like and subscribe if you've enjoyed it, and the links to everything I've used are in the video description below. So if you were going to purchase any of these items, I would really appreciate it if you purchase through my links, because it means I get a small commission back from that, and it costs no extra to yourself. And also, my Amazon links are not just for UK Amazon. They work for UK Amazon, US Amazon, Germany, France and Italy. So if you're from any of those countries and you click on my Amazon links, you will be taken to the country, sorry, you will be taken to the Amazon of your own country if they actually stock the product. Yeah, some people think that because I'm from the UK, my Amazon links are just for UK Amazon, and they're not. They're for like 5 or 6 different countries. Okay, so thanks again for watching. My next video, it won't be a colour along video because I've got something else planned, but my next colour along video will be from the Country Charms colouring book by Creative Havens, and then after that I'm going to move on to some more Halloween autumn themed stuff. So I hope you'll join me then.